Hey, Joe.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. I'm Joe from the Nocturnal. How's your day going so far?
Good.
Good.
Take me back to the beginning of this project. How did you come on, Matt? How did you come on, Justin? Whose idea was it to make the series? And yeah, tell me about the inception.
Justin, you take this one.
I was gonna say maybe you should take this one.
Well, look, I had worked with Jeff Benedict on a series called Tiger. He had wrote the book that was inspired by, that series was inspired by. And as I was wrapping this thing up, Jeff Benedict was writing a book about the New England Patriots, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, I'd love to have you direct this thing." And Apple and Imagine got involved, and the rest is history.
Justin, I feel like this is perfect timing. Football season's over. You know, football fans are going to want to be watching something. And then Bill Belichick, there's this news that Bill Belichick's leaving the Patriots. Were you at all, when you heard that news, were you all happy that it's going to help the series?
I don't know if we were happy, and you honestly couldn't. You don't plan these things. I mean,
Yeah.
this release date was set, months ago. Um, but as you look at what this story is, and what's unique about the series is that it obviously starts 20 plus years ago, and then takes us all the way up through almost present tense. With the end of the dynasty and Tom leaving the team. Without giving anything away, I think there's a lot of clues, especially in those later episodes, as to what ultimately led to Bill departing. So I think for an audience, anybody who's a fan of the team is going to enjoy, I think, getting that inside perspective on how it all went down. And if you're not a fan of the team, you're still going to get joy out of perhaps the Schadenfreude of watching the end of the dynasty. And if you're not even a football fan, I think you're going to really enjoy this, because it's ultimately a story about humans and human ingenuity, and sort of a path to greatness, and how this organization, really starting as underdogs, became something so extraordinary.
Matt, tell me about your kind of personal journey with the over the last couple decades. So I grew up around Boston. So my first couple of seasons I remember were Drew Bledsoe, and then I remember all that going down. So I've been so lucky as a football fan. Tell me about your experience watching football, specifically with the Patriots.
Well, as you pointed out, I did not grow up a Patriot fan, but I think that so I really didn't know anything about this team or anything that really happened. And I think what was so fascinating to me was I had this opportunity to talk to not just Bill, not just Tom, not just Robert, but the 70 or so people that we interviewed, from the players to the coaching staff to the rivals to league officials and everybody. And not really being a super fan of the team, what that afforded me is to listen to them and to hear their stories. And so, I'd heard, about, like, oh, I knew that Drew Bledsoe had gone down, and I knew that Tom had come in, and then Bill decided to stick with him, or something like that, vaguely. But being able to ask them those questions and realize that with every headline, with everything that you thought you knew about this team, there were so many things to uncover and unpack. And we had access to all these people, many of whom had never talked on the record before. And then also 35,000 something hours of archival footage that nobody had ever seen before. And within that, there were all these gems that, elucidated the stories that they were telling, that these people were telling in their interviews. But these events that I think a lot of people who are fans of the team, think they know really well. It's one thing to read about it. It's another thing to be in the locker room in some of these pivotal moments and actually see the way that Belichick addresses the team in the midst of the Spygate scandal, and to be there. So I think that, it's going to be something that's revelatory for both diehard Patriot fans, but I also think that what makes this series so great is that at its core, it's a very human story about people, albeit on one of the biggest stages in sports, but it's about people interacting with each other, and that's what makes it so special.
Matt, tell me a little bit more about some of the archives you were able to dig into, because especially as sports fans kind of feel like they know everything, and they know everything's going on, and the media is always reporting on things, whether or not it's true. Tell me about digging into that, and going through that process of, like, hey, like, here's some things that people probably don't know about, or here's some things that we're gonna share in our story?
Well, we paired up with Imagine Entertainment and we brought in a team of incredible producers, editors, researchers, and we had access to the Kraft Sports Archive. We had access to NFL films, and it was in both of those places, but in particular, I think in the Kraft Sports Archive, where they had been in the locker rooms, they had been in meetings, and had captured all these things that people had never seen before. I think, I mean, there's just so much gold, but here's one example in particular. It wasn't just in those archives. It was also the people we talked to. So David Nugent, who's Tom's roommate when he first comes into the league, we were going to interview him. And as he was leaving his home and he was about to come do his interview with us in Boston, he goes, by the way, I have this, home video footage of Tom Brady living in this condo that we lived in that Ty Law had sold to Tom. Would that be of any interest to you? And you said, yeah, obviously, great. Let's take a peek at it. And one of the things we kept hearing from all these people we talked to was that, they would say, Ty Law would say, look, like back then in 2000 and 2001, he wasn't Tom Brady the GOAT. He was just Tommy, right? And it's one thing to hear that. It's another thing to sort of see Tom, from that time period. And, he's got his like popped collar, and it's Tom Brady before the GQ covers and the Lombardi trophies, and to get to see him and hear him talk and interact with people, that's combined with all these incredible interviews is what makes documentary filmmaking so great.
Justin, tell us a little bit about that from the producing side of things, because some people might not even know what documentary producer does. Tell me about some of the main, I guess, challenges that you've had kind of along the way of making this project.
Well, I think one of the first ones, anything of this scale, and especially something that takes, I mean, this is close to 2.5, 3 years in the making. There's an incredible machine that has to get built to be able to support Matt as the filmmaker and his vision. And unlike either a scripted project where you have a script that you're going off of with actors who are reading lines, or even a much smaller documentary where maybe you're following somebody, this has the last 25 plus years of history behind it. And it's also our responsibility as filmmakers to get the story right. Matt talks about the archive. One of our first trips actually up to the stadium, we go into the basement, and then there's like a sub basement. And this is where they have stored over the years a lot of their archive. And they had just started to go through the process of unearthing it and eventually digitizing it, which we ended up helping them with through this process. But just boxes, it's like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's just these boxes of videotapes that are like, some of them are 3/4-inch tapes, if you know what that is, and some of them are Betamax tapes, and some of them are like home movie footage, and we literally just started going through everything.
Matt, tell us about people who are not sports fans. Tell them why they should watch this series, or why it might be interesting to them.
Yeah, because I think that while this is obviously a football story, it's really a story about human beings and relationships between people, right? That's how the Dynasty got created. And ultimately, I think that those human relationships are what led to the unraveling of the Dynasty. And I think that while these are larger than life characters, this is just a very simple human story that everybody can relate to. So I think for non-football fans, for the most diehard Patriot fans, there's something for everybody here, and it's going to be a fascinating watch for people.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I'm excited to dive into the rest of the series, and excited to see this come out to the public.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. See you guys.